In this video, I am going to show you how to unlock your creativity while developing your own personal style. Now, that might sound like a tall order, and you might be thinking, how can I do that by just watching a 15-minute YouTube video? It's actually a lot easier than you would think, and by the end of this video, you're going to understand the steps that you need to take to instantly unlock your own creativity. So here's the problem. When most people think about being creative or creativity, they think about the end result, the performance, the masterpiece. But that is not where it begins. That's not where you start working on creativity. That is the end result. That is the performance. Just like everything else in music, learning to be creative is a step-by-step process that gets easier the more you work on it. So let's start at the very beginning. Instead of thinking about creativity as the end result, I want you to think about it as simply the ability to change what you are playing to make it sound different. In music, we generally refer to that as ad-libbing if you're playing something that has already been written out, or improvisation if you are making it up from scratch. And that's the secret. That's where creativity lies and your own personal style begins to thrive, when you get really comfortable just being able to change the way that things sound simply by making small alterations. Normally when you think about being creative, you just have the idea of playing your saxophone and whatever comes out, and that is your creative statement to the world. Or as a lot of saxophone teachers or music teachers in general will say, just play what you feel. That's a great strategy if you are an advanced player, but if you are just trying to figure it out, that does not work at all. The best approach is actually the exact opposite. What you want to do is set up really simple parameters that will give you a really specific result, or results, because we're going to be making tons and tons of changes as we work our way through this process. Here's an example. I am going to play a G major scale in quarter notes, so that is going to give me two measures. So I'm going to think of it as a 2-bar phrase where I am just playing a G major scale in quarter notes. Now, the first change that I am going to make to this G major scale to make it sound more creative or to unlock my creative potential is just to change the articulations. So instead of playing a tongued G major scale or a slurred G major scale, I'm going to switch up the articulations throughout playing the scale. When I play like that, the scale sounds different. So the idea in unlocking my creativity is just to come up with tons and tons of different ways of playing that G major scale with different articulations, just to unlock my brain from playing it one specific way. So I'm going to play it over and over, and every time I'm going to change the articulation up just a little bit. The more you play it, the easier it's going to be to change. The easier it is to change, the more creative you're going to be able to be with this G major scale or anything that you apply this principle to. Now, obviously, just changing the articulation is only going to get you so far. So the next step I would do is playing the exact same thing, a G major scale that is 2 measures long, but this time I'm also going to change the rhythm. So it still has to add up to 4 beats in a measure, and I'm still only going to play 2 measures, but I'm going to change up the rhythm of this G major scale to make it sound different every time I play it. Again, each time I'm just making small changes to make the scale sound different. That is where your creativity lies. That's also where you're going to start to develop your own personal style, because the more you do this, you're going to start to gravitate towards different rhythms or different articulations that you like the sound of, and that's going to help develop your own personal style. So when it comes to practicing being creative, your main objective should be to change what you're playing inside of the parameters that you give yourself. Now, this is really important, especially in the beginning. Don't get too caught up in what you're playing. You're not trying to play the world's coolest thing in the beginning. In the beginning, you're just trying to get really comfortable coming up with variations, coming up with creative ideas to play the same thing. So don't get too caught up in it has to sound perfect every time. Just keep working at it, and I promise the more you do this, the more you work on being creative, the more you work on ad-libbing, the better it will sound and the less time it will take to get it performance ready. If you are getting some value out of this video, I would really appreciate it if you give me a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and click the bell for notifications. And of course, comments are always appreciated and welcomed. All right, we can use this concept on any scale, and it's definitely going to help unlock your creativity. You're going to be able to come up with all different kinds of variations of the scales that you're playing, but that's generally not where you're going to use this concept the most. When you use this concept the most, it's going to be playing a melody. And in music, again, we call that ad-libbing. So here is the tune Let It Be by the Beatles, played strictly as is. Now, if I play this melody again and I just change the articulations, it is going to sound a lot different and a lot better. That made a huge difference. And of course, if I'm practicing being creative, I can come up with some other ways to play this melody by simply changing the articulation. Now, as I said earlier, some things are going to sound better than others, but when you're practicing creativity, you don't really care that much about it. You're just practicing to make it sound different. Now, that last time I played Let It Be, it sounded a little weird because I was accenting and doing stuff and doing some articulations in the wrong spot. But my whole goal, again, is just to change up the articulations to make it sound different. The more I do that, the easier it will be to find my own personal style and to play this melody in a way that I think it sounds really good. Now, of course, the next step would be to change the rhythm. Or I could play it like this. Again, I'm just trying to unlock my ears and my brain to be able to play it in as many different ways as possible. That way I can develop my own personal style and get really comfortable playing music that is not written. Now let's talk about this when it comes to improvisation. When it comes to improvisation, your parameters are going to be a little bit different. A really good starting point is to give yourself a couple of different notes that you're going to play and the amount of time. So I'm going to play a 2-measure phrase using an F natural, a G, and a B flat. I'm going to be thinking of the F natural as a flat 7, the G as a 1, and the B flat as a flat 3rd. Here is the first example. Pretty simple, right? Just a 2-measure phrase using those 3 notes. Now, I'm going to keep repeating, and every time I repeat, I'm going to try and come up with a different idea. So the whole time, I'm still going to use the same notes, F, G, and B flat, but I'm going to practice being creative by coming up with a bunch of different rhythms, playing the notes in different orders, repeating some of the notes, coming up with different articulations, just trying to play it a little bit different every time. Then I could change a parameter. So instead of playing 2-measure phrases, I'm going to play 4-measure phrases. Again, I'm just trying to play it different every time to unlock my creativity. If you're watching a video on creativity, then I'm guessing that you'd like to get a whole lot better at playing melodies and improvisation. If that's the case, I'd like to invite you to come check me out at the Scott Paddock Sax School. This is one of the things that separate my sax school from a lot of the other courses that are offered. In every lesson that you learn a song, I teach you what the goal notes are, how to articulate it, what you can add to it to make it sound a whole lot more interesting. My whole idea when teaching you a song is to teach you to personalize that song, not just play the written notes and rhythms. And the same thing with improvisation. I have several courses dedicated to improv where I take you from one note solos, just starting out, all the way through soloing over advanced chord progressions. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, I'll leave the link in the video description below. Now you can do this exact same thing over chords as well. So I'll do it playing a G7 chord. So my notes will be G, B, D, and F. So I'm going to improvise in 2-measure phrases, just playing G7 chord tones. Now 4-measure phrases. And of course, I could also do it using chord changes. So this time I am going to play the first 4 measures of a blues progression. So I'm going to play a G7 for 1 measure, a C7, which is the 4 chord, for 1 measure, and then a G7 for 2 measures. So to practice my creativity, I just come up with some parameters and then play as many ideas as possible. Then I change my parameters and then I play as many ideas as possible. And I keep doing that to unlock my ears and my brain so that I am able to just have an unlimited supply of coming up with creative ideas. And the major side benefit is that the more you work on this, the more you are going to develop your own personal style. Thanks for taking the time to check out this video. If you'd like to dive deeper into my saxophone world, come check me out at the Scott Paddock Sax School.